Hey everybody, welcome back to Everything MTG. My name is Justin. This is more spoilers for Guilds of Ravnica. We're going to jump right into it. As with every other video, a lot of these are in foreign language, mostly Japanese, so I will be reading the text for you. I'll pop the art of the card up so you can look at it. Ooh, how pretty. But if you guys want to see, the exact wording on the cards or whatever, if you don't trust me because I'm only 5% trustworthy, I'll leave the link down below for you guys to check it out. So we're going to start with Ladev Captain, 1 a green and a white for an Elf Knight 2/2. Whenever Ladev Captain attacks, you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. Ladev Captain gets 1/1 for each creature tapped this way until end of turn. You can pay 3 a green and a white and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. I think this card is pretty great, especially if you're going to be playing it in Commander with a Elf Tribal under something like Risk the Redeemed. Yeah, it's a really good card. I mean, you can pump this thing up with a bunch of 1/1s. You can create the 1/1 soldiers with lifelink. It's already a 2/2 for 3, which, that's like meh, but pretty good. And he's riding like a super souped up dog. Like what is this? Like a dire wolf almost. It's not a wolf though. It's an actual dog. It's like one of them ones that they use on the police force. What are those things called? I always forget what they're called. German Shepherd. It's like a souped up dire German Shepherd. So looks pretty sweet. We jump right into our next card here. We have Giant Soldier. It's 4 a red and a white for a 5/5 Giant Soldier. Big surprise. Has Vigilance. Whenever Giant Soldier attacks, it deals 1 damage to each creature defending player controls. Boy, that sounds really similar to another card that just got printed recently, Goblin Chain Whirler. Except this costs 5, and it only happens when it attacks. But it's a 5/5 for 6. Or yeah, it costs 6. It's a 5/5 for 6, and it has Vigilance. And it gives you that 1 damage whenever you attack with it, so I do think that's pretty good. I like that card. Definitely has applications. We have Conclave Centaur, double green, double white for a 4/4 Centaur Knight, again with Vigilance. When it dies, create 2 green and white 2/2 Elf Knight creature tokens with Vigilance. Cards that replace themselves, whether in your hand as a cantrip or on the battlefield, are always welcome. So this turns from a 4/4 with Vigilance into 2 2/2s with Vigilance. I'd say that's pretty good, especially for 4. I mean, a 4/4 for 4 with Vigilance already isn't bad. Turns into 2 2/2s with Vigilance. The only bad thing about it is it costs 2 green and 2 white, which is pretty heavy to play if you're playing this in Commander. I would play it in an Elf Tribal deck likely. It wouldn't be hard to cast, but if you're trying to play that in Standard, it's probably not happening. We have Crackling Drake. A lot of this is 2 and 2, because this is 2 red and 2 blue. It's a star 4 Drake. It has flying. Its power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. And when this card enters the battlefield, it draws you a card. So not only is this a cantrip, it's a better version of Enigma Drake, because it counts your spells that are in exile. And I can't remember what. I can't remember what mechanic it is, and I think it's in the set where you have to exile a card from your graveyard or something to like recast it. Is it Jumpstart? It's Jumpstart. Yeah, so this would still count the cards that you Jumpstart with this, and it draws you a card. So this can be, I mean, an extremely powerful card. I'd play this in an Is It Burn deck, like Commander Is It Burn deck. In fact, I have played this card while it's functional reprint Enigma Drake in my Is It Burn deck, so it's pretty good. We have Hunted Witness, 1 white for a 1/1. When it dies, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So yet another card that replaces itself, a 1/1 for 1, whatever, turns into a 1/1 with lifelink, which is even better. So it's pretty good. Um, a card that I want to argue is great, but it just starts out so weak. You need to like equip this with something or like play another card that gives it 1/1 counters. What's that? Or Mentor, yeah, this is the perfect Mentor card. It's Swiftblade Vindicator. It's 1 red and 1 white, very playable, for a 1/1 human soldier with double strike, vigilance, and trample. This card is extremely powerful, and as Amanda points out, if you have a card with Mentor on the battlefield, this card is almost downright unstoppable. The fact that it has double strike and vigilance is utterly ridiculous, and it has trample on top of that, and this costs 1 red and 1 white. I mean, that's so powerful. Even if you only got to mentor it once, it's effectively a 4/4, with the double strike. So, extremely powerful. This is a rare, and this is going to be one of those chase rares in the set. If you manage to pull this with a mentor card and limited, I think you're pretty well set. And you get them both on the field. Like, I don't see how your opponent's going to stop this, you know? Our next card, it doesn't have hexproof, no, but your opponent having to waste a removal spell on a 1/1, like, really sucks for them. And all you paid was 2 mana, so who cares, right? Our next card is Detour, which is 3 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands or gates and put them onto the battlefield tapped. This card, in my estimation, is extremely good. This could even almost be better than Cultivate. Cultivate costs 1 less, still a sorcery, and it puts 1 land onto the battlefield and 1 land into your hand, but those are only basics. This can fetch you up gates, which can really help ramp you out into those lands that you need. I have land problems in my Slivers deck all the time because I don't have all the fetches and the shocks, so I have to play gates and things like that. And this could be the card that, fixes me very effectively. So it's nice to see that they're printing more cards like Cultivate. We have Omnispell Adept, which is 4 and a blue for a 3/4 human wizard. With 2 and a blue and tap, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. So leave it up to wizards to keep making cards that let you cast things for free, which is a huge mistake. That needs to stop, but it never will because they're never going to learn their lesson. So the only downside of this card is it costs 5. If you manage to get this card on the field and it lives through 1 turn, though, I mean, your opponents are so screwed because you can keep casting bounce spells out of your hand with this for free, and it's so ridiculous. I mean, and not even that. You could play draw spells. You could play take an extra turn spells. What's that take an extra turn spell that gives you 2 extra turns, like Reach from Tomorrow or something, or Reach for Tomorrow? Gives you 2 extra turns and it costs like 9, and you can play this for 3. I mean, that's so ridiculous. Not only that, but if you're playing a blue deck, of course you're holding up a counterspell when you play this thing, so it's not getting killed, let's be honest. Extremely powerful. Stupid. Goes in a wizard's deck, even more stupid. So, it's great that they printed that. Of course, if you guys haven't kept up with any of my other videos, I always speak about these cards from a commander player standpoint because that is almost exclusively what I play, other than maybe limited or draft. So, if you're wondering like, how is this going to be good in standard? It's probably not. We have Glaive of the Guild Pact, which is 2 colorless for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each gate you control and has vigilance and menace with an equip cost of 3. Usually I ignore things like this completely, artifacts that are equipments, because they're just, in standard, they're not very good. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, good luck. Amanda's heading out to game day. Hopefully she'll win. We'll see how it goes for 2019. So, good luck to her. Normally I just ignore these equipments because in standard they almost never see play. It is pretty good, +1/+0 for each gate you control and has vigilance and menace, but if you're playing this in commander, it's almost completely useless. Our next card is Connive and Concoct. So Connive is going to be 2 and 2 hybrid blue or black mana as a sorcery. You gain control of target creature with power 2 or less. Pretty powerful, only really good in the early game, so the fact that it costs 4 is unfortunate. And then we have Concoct, which is 3, a blue, and a black for a sorcery. You surveil 3, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This one is definitely powerful. You can surveil a pretty powerful creature card from your library straight into the graveyard and quickly get that back. And that's really, really powerful in my opinion. So I think this card can definitely be good if you're playing around it the right way. We have Ritual of Soot, which is 2 and double black for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with CMC 3 or less. Now, this is a very interesting card because if you look at a lot of cards in this set, not many things have CMC 3 or less, so I'm not sure what the application of this card is here. I don't see it being super useful in this set. or in general. I mean, unless your opponents are playing a bunch of tokens, maybe in Commander or something like that. But then there's better things to play like Damnation, you know. So I'm not really sure on the application of that card. It's interesting that they're printing at least some form of a board wipe though. We have Watcher in the Mist, which is 3 in double blue for a 3/4 spirit with some pretty creepy looking art. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you surveil 2. So this is just your basic flying surveil card. It comes on the battlefield, you do a little thing. It's kind of weak for its mana cost, but you know, it is what it is. Our next card is Creeping Chill, which is 3 and a black for a sorcery. It deals 3 damage to each opponent, and you gain 3 life. When it is put into your graveyard from your library, milled, basically, or surveilled, you may exile it. If you do, it deals 3 damage to each opponent and you gain 3 life. So, regardless of how you get this card, you can either hard cast it, or preferably you want to surveil this into the graveyard and cast it for free, and you still get the same effect. Because dealing 3 damage to each opponent and gaining 3 life, in Commander, that's a fairly good effect for 4, but I like something that has more of an impact than that. So, I mean, basically, you're just building around that for surveil. We have probably one of the next big cards since Lazav, and that's Tristani Discordant. 3, a green, and a white for a 1/4 legendary dryad. She can be your commander. She is mythic. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. When she enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink, so effectively 2 2/2s with lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, each player gains control of all creatures they own. So if you're playing against somebody in a commander game, say, that is playing a lot of mind control effects, they're basically screwed. So that's unfortunate for them, but Tristani this time around is fairly good. I mean, the fact that she's a 1/4 is kind of meh, but she is a general lord, and she does come in with some buddies. So I think that's pretty good. Our next card here is in a foreign language. I have to open it up in a separate tab. Give me 1 second. Maximum Velocity. 1 red for an instant. Target creature gets 1/1 and haste until end of turn. This card also has Jump Start. Not too bad. I always like red cards that are really cheap that give haste. The fact that it gives 1/1 and also has Jump Start is pretty good as well. Definitely has implications in Commander. If you're playing Emrakul or Siege Worm or something stupid and you manage to cast this on it because it only costs 1 red, you're doing pretty good. So we have Dimir Spybug, which is 1 black and 1 blue for a 1/1, has flying, has menace. Whenever you surveil, put a 1/1 counter on Dimir Spybug. This is a pretty good card. I'm not sure about standard, but in limited, I'd absolutely play this. A 1/1 for 2 with flying and menace is pretty unstoppable, honestly, with the evasion on the flying and the menace. The fact that if you ever surveil, it gets a 1/1 counter is putting this in pretty unstoppable range, unless they manage to remove it with some sort of spell. Our next card is Enhanced Surveillance, which is 1 and a blue for an enchantment. You may look at 2 additional cards each time you surveil. So if you surveil 1, you'll look at 3. If you surveil 3, you'll look at 5. Pretty amazing. Exile Enhanced Surveillance at any point in time. Shuffle your graveyard into your library. So in Commander, the top part of this, unless you're playing around Surveil, is not going to have pretty much any implication. But the bottom part, shuffling your graveyard into your library at instant speed, is so extremely powerful if you're playing some sort of Reanimator effect, or you're playing Marin or something like that. I've definitely gotten blown out from people exiling my graveyard, so that has great implications. Of course, you wouldn't be able to play it in Marin because Marin's green-black unless you're playing another commander, but you're playing Marin as your main centerpiece. So, you know, this would go pretty well in my Brawl deck. I would say that. I wouldn't play it there. But just as an example, I flashback a lot of things out of my graveyard, either with Torrential Gearhulk or Baby Jace or some other special cards that'll flashback things from my graveyard. So this could have pretty good implications for getting my board wipes and draw spells back from my graveyard into my library, so I can either cast them again or stop my opponent from getting rid of them because I want to flash them back. You know, whatever. Pretty good card. And if you're managing to play around Surveil as well, this is extremely powerful. We have Disinformation Campaign, which is 1, a blue and a black for another enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and each opponent discards a card. Fairly good effect. Whenever you surveil, return this card to its owner's hand. So this could go, right along with Enhanced Surveillance. If you're playing around a surveil mechanic, you can keep bouncing this thing, drawing a card, discarding your opponent's cards. Could be fairly powerful. We have Ledev Guardian, which is 3 and a white for a 2/4 human knight with Convoke. It's okay. That's the best I'll say about it. 2/4 for 4 is not great, but with Convoke, you can get this out, possibly even on turn 2, depending on if you're playing these 1/1s or not. So that could be really great. Lotlith Giant is 6 and a black for a 6/5 zombie giant with Undergrowth. When Lotlith Giant enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target opponent for each creature card in your graveyard. I'd play this as a bomb in limited for sure, especially at the fact that it's an uncommon. 6/5 for 7 with the 1 damage for each creature card in your graveyard to your opponent. That's not bad. We have Piston Fist Cyclops, which is 1 and 2 hybrid red or blue mana. 4/3 Cyclops, of course, with Defender. As long as you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, Piston Fist Cyclops can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So 4/3 for 3 with Defender is okay. It's not so bad. It's a good blocker. It can definitely kill something. The fact that it can't attack is unfortunate. But if you manage to cast an instant or sorcery, just one, not too hard to do, you can attack as though it didn't have Defender. I do think it could be easily removable because it only has 3 defense, so this is potentially a one-off where you're going to swing in with it and kill something or stop somebody from swinging in on you because they're going to lose something big. But usually that's a good thing, holding off your opponent's attacks. And this is in a limited format I'm speaking of in this scenario, is pretty good. Our next card is Parhelion Patrol, 3 and white for a 2/3 human knight with flying, vigilance, and mentor. This is a pretty good card. The fact that it has flying and vigilance, it's a 2/3 for 4 with mentor, makes it all round up pretty well. If you manage to pair this up with that Swiftblade Vindicator, you're doing extremely well in a limited format. Swiftblade Vindicator, if I didn't mention, is a rare, and Parhelion Patrol is a common. So there is the potential that you could definitely get these two together, and you're going to be a pretty dynamite combo going on there. Our next card is Loxodon Restorer. 4 double white for a 3/4 Elephant Cleric with Convoke. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. This card isn't great. Gaining 4 life is almost negligible. The fact that it costs 6 for a 3/4 is pretty terrible. With the Convoke, you can definitely convoke this out earlier, but it's a 3/4, which is fairly weak. I don't see the point why you would even want to play this. Maybe in limited if you're looking for something desperately to put into your deck because you ran out of things to pick. This is a common, so it's definitely going to be around. That's pretty much the only scenario I would play this in. Our next card is Book Devourer. 5 and a red for a 4/5 beast with trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. Reminiscent of Bomat Courier, except you do not have to pay a red, and it does not have haste, but it does have trample. You only have to deal 1 point of combat damage with this, so the fact that it's a 4/5 with trample, pretty good chance you're going to be able to deal that combat damage. Just 1 point, so you can ditch potentially useless cards and then draw that many cards, which is pretty great. But unlike Bomat Courier, it's not contingent on how many cards you have in your hand. Bomat Courier will make you ditch all those cards, and then you get however many cards you exiled with Bomat Courier, whereas in this scenario, you only draw as many as you discard, so if you have no cards in hand, this is not helping you at all. The fact that it's a 6-drop 4/5 with trample isn't really that bad either. The art on this is hilarious, and usually I don't read this, but the flavor text says, "Not my first edition of the Advocist and the Urchin." And it's a guy sitting here with this huge thing eating his first edition of the Advocist and the Urchin, so that sucks for that guy. I just thought that was pretty funny. So we have Siege Worm, 5 double green, worm, convoke, trample. It's a 5/5. 5/5 for 7 with convoke and trample seems pretty good in this scenario. That'd be pretty hard to handle in limited, so good card is good. We have Sprouting Renewal? Yeah, Sprouting Renewal. 2 and a green for a sorcery with Convoke. The Convoked sorcery is interesting in green. Choose one. Create a 2/2 green and white elf knight creature token with vigilance, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Um, this is an interesting card. I think it can be good, especially even in Commander, because you can convoke this out fairly early. It only costs 3 if you don't convoke it. You can get a green and white Night Elf creature token with a Vigilance at 2/2, or you can destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So if you're playing something like Disenchant or Naturalize, for whatever reason, I would obviously replace it with this because it only costs 1 more. Potentially doesn't even cost 1 more if you're convoking it. And you have the option of getting a token instead of just destroying an artifact or enchantment. So that card definitely has implications in Commander, which is great. Next card is Join Shields, which is 3, a green and a white for an instant. Untap all your creatures. They gain indestructible and hexproof until end of turn. That is an extremely powerful effect. The problem with this is it costs 5, which almost puts it out of the point of using this as a defensive card. Excuse me, I got a little bit of allergies or maybe the start of a head cold going on. Amanda was just sick and I think she's passing it on to me. Let me take a drink here before I follow up my initial rendition of Choke to Death with version 2. In a green-white deck, I mean, when are you going to hold up 5 mana for a defensive spell? Like, you want to be pumping out tokens or creatures or something like that. So this card, I just don't see how this can be useful. It just costs way too much. If this costs 3, I could definitely see that happening. And there are instances of cards like this that cost 3, but you just don't get the untap all your creatures, and I'm assuming that's why it costs the additional mana to be able to do that. But the only other instance where I can see this happening is swinging in on your attack step and then immediately casting this to untap all your creatures, give them indestructible and hexproof, or waiting until they block or whatever, and then giving them all indestructible, hexproof, and untapping them as a way to save yourself for the next turn. But this screams, you know, I want to play this as a defensive card, so it's really awkwardly set up for that. And our last card of the day is going to be another split card, Assurance and Association. Assurance is 2 green, white hybrid mana, so you can pay 2 green, 2 white, or any combination thereof for, let's see, sorry, it's in foreign language. For an instant, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. That creature gains indestructible until end of turn. And then we have Association, which is 4 a green and a white. Also for an instant, create 3 2/2 white and green elf knight creature tokens with vigilance. Interesting card. The Assurance isn't bad. Putting a 1/1 counter on something, giving it indestructible is a great combat trick. And the Association, 6 mana for 3 2/2 white green elf knight creature tokens with vigilance is okay. It's playable, but I don't know if I'd play it for that. And if I wasn't playing it for both sides of this, I would play, I can't remember what the functional reprint card is. It's like 1 green Blossoming Defense, I think it is, that gives everything like hexproof and indestructible or something like that. Or there's one from Theros that gives them all like Prot from a color or indestructible. So I'd rather play that if I wasn't also going to play this for Association. And for 6 in green-white, I'm not sure I would do that unless I'm playing some sort of ramp strategy, or if I'm playing elves. But then again, there's better elf cards than paying 6 mana for 3 tokens. You know, there's things that don't trigger off tokens coming into the battlefield. It's on elves being cast, so that wouldn't play very well. Anyways, guys, that's the end of our spoilers for the 14th and the 15th. I didn't get that video up last night. I apologize for that. I'm just really running behind on everything. But definitely some interesting cards. The Tristani, I'm excited to see Tristani. She has a pretty good effect. Being a General Lord is pretty awesome. Other than that, was there anything really amazing today? I guess the functional reprint of Enigma Drake, aka Crackling Drake, and the reprint, slightly more expensive, of Kodama's Reach, or Cultivate, which is Detour, is pretty sweet. And of course, the ever broken Omnispell Adept to let me play things for free is pretty cool to see. So let me know what you guys think of the cards down below. Do you like Tristani? Do you hate Tristani? Are you totally against the Omnispell Adept and the fact that they keep printing cards that let you play things for free and it's breaking standard every time that happens? Let me know. Anyways, guys, I always appreciate you keeping up with Spoiler Season with me. We're currently at 152 out of 259, so we are more than halfway. Still plenty more cards to go and be excited about. Appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, throw out a like. If you want to subscribe, do that. Totally up to you. I'm not forcing you to do that, but if you want to, go ahead. Leave a comment down below. I love interacting with you guys, and we'll see you next time right here on Everything MTG. Peace.